Mathletes, welcome to this week's homework, which is graphing inequalities. If you were with me last year in sixth grade, we touched on inequalities. If this is your first year, that is a-okay. We are going to dive in. Don't forget your printable if it is difficult for you to remember the difference. So we have greater than and less than, right? We can also add equal to, and we have to remember how to fill in our dots. So if we are greater than, less than, and include the equal to, our dot is going to be filled in. That tells me that the number my circle is at is included. If I don't have that line underneath, meaning is equal to, my dot stays open because that number is not included. Let's dive in. We have A is less than 5. So we're going to find 5. We're going to do an open circle because it does not have is equal to, and it has to be less than 5. One thing that helps me remember is think of this as your arrow. It tells you which way to draw. So A is less than 5. That means that A could be 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, or any of our negative numbers. B is greater than 7. So no is equal to, so open circle, and our arrow goes that way. Down here, D is greater than or equal to 18. So when we go to 18, we're going to fill in this circle because 18 is also an option. And our arrow goes to the right. C is less than or equal to 14. So again, our circle is filled in. It can be 14 or anything that is less than 14. 2 is less than E. So for this one, be careful. We have our direction switched. So normally we would just draw our arrow, but for this one, we have 2 is less than E. That means that this arrow, to include the E, gets flipped. Because if I flip this the other way, E is greater than 2. See the difference? If your variable is not on the left, flip your sign and your numbers and use your arrows that way. If your variable is on the right, your arrow is the opposite. Okay, so for this one, our variable is again on the opposite side. So my arrow is going to go the opposite direction, or I can flip them. F and 6, and then change my direction. So I'm going to find F. I'm going to find my 6. I'm going to fill it in because it is or equals to, and I'm going to draw my arrow. So remember, if our variable's on the left, all we have to do is finish out that arrow. If it's on the right, we need to flip it. All right, any questions on this page? Bring them with you to class. All right, so faces, for this one, we need to solve the inequality. So in order to figure out what G is equal to, we need to get it by itself, just like we have been doing with our equations. So I'm going to start with subtracting 7, subtracting 7. G is greater than negative 5. So I'm going to find my negative 5. I'm going to put an open circle, and I'm going to draw my arrow because G is on the right side. Over here, add 1, add 1. H is less than 10. Find my 10. My arrow is going the direction because my H is on the correct side. Down here. So we have a negative. Now we talked about this briefly in class, but just in case, when we have a negative, we have to flip the sign. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to solve, okay? So I'm going to subtract 10, subtract 10. Negative K is less than negative 2. I'm going to flip it, which is the same as multiplying them both by negative 1. This becomes K is greater than or equal to 2. I am going to find my, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't flip that. I didn't flip it when it was down here. Sorry, this way. There we go. I'm going to find my 2. I'm going to fill it in, and I'm going to draw my arrow over here. -6, -6. J is greater than or equal to -3. -3, fill it in, draw my arrow. It has to be greater than -3 or equal to. Coming down here, I'm going to subtract 19 from both sides. When I do that, I get -5 is greater than M. But I'm going to switch them so that my arrow rule works. So I find my -5, I do my circle, and my arrow is going to go to the left. -11, -11. 7 is less than or equal to -n. So I'm going to flip it, multiply them both by -1. This becomes -7 is greater than or equal to n. I'm going to find my -7, and I'm going to draw my arrow the opposite direction because I didn't double flip this. You could, if you got to here, that's okay, but just for my friends that like to flip it, n goes here, -7, and I'm going to flip my sign. Okay, so n is less than or equal to -7. Any questions on these? Bring them with you to class. All right, let's graph. Sticky numbers, I divide. Remember when we have to divide by 3, and this is all on the printable, or I'm sorry, we have to divide by a negative number or multiply by a negative number, we are going to flip our sign. So when I divide both of these by 3, I get P is less than or equal to 4. P is on the left, so life is good. I am going to draw my circle and fill it in. Arrow to the left, and we are good to go. Over here, I see a fraction. I multiply. Q is greater than or equal to 10. I find my 10, I fill it in, and my arrow goes to the right. I'm going to multiply. S is greater than -28. I find my 28. My S is on the right side, arrow goes to the right. Sticky numbers, I divide, R is less than 2. I'm going to put my circle at my 2, and my arrow goes to the left. Sticky numbers, I divide. When I divide or multiply by a negative number, my sign flips. 6 divided by -2 is -3. My sign flips is T. I'm going to switch these so that my T is on the correct side. T is less than or less than or equal to -3. Fill it in. And my arrow goes to the left. All right, for this one, multiply both sides by 3. I see a fraction. I multiply. 27 is greater than or equal to U. Fill it in. If I flip it around, U on this side, 27 on this side, my arrow goes to the left. That's it. Any questions? Bring them with you to class. All right, sweet faces, we are on to page 4, where we are up to 2 steps. I hope you're hanging in there, sweet faces. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. When I do that, I get 10V is less than or equal to 40. I'm going to divide both of these by 10. I get V is less than or equal to 4. I'm going to put my circle filled in to include 4. And my arrow goes to the left. 6W minus 7 plus 7 plus 7. This gives me 6W is greater than 36. Divide both sides by 6. This gives me W is greater than 6. I find my 6, open circle, arrow goes to the right. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Negative 8y is greater than or equal to 32. Divide both sides by negative 8. Remember, dividing by a negative flips my sign. This becomes y is less than or equal to negative 4. Shows me my arrow. Fill it in. Arrow goes to the left. All right, we have 4 plus 3x is less than 25. Subtract your 4 from both sides. We have 3x is less than 21. Divide both by 3. X is less than 7. Find your 7. Draw your arrow to the left. 17 is less than or equal to 9z plus 8. Subtract 8 from both sides. That leaves me with 9 is less than or equal to 9z. Divide both sides by 9. I get 1 is less than or equal to z. I can flip it or know that I use my opposite signs. So if I want to flip it, z is greater than 1. Find your 1, do your circle, and your arrow goes to the right. Cancel. There we go. All right, 49 is greater than 6a plus or minus 11. Add 11 to both sides. 9 and 1 is 10, is 60, is greater than 6a. Divide by 6. A is less than 10. I'm going to flip it so that my arrow points me in the right direction. I have A, arrow goes to the left. Remember, when we flip it to put our variable on the left, everything switches. Any questions? Bring them with you to class. All right, so faces, here's our last page. I didn't want to do number lines because I wanted to make sure that we felt ready to do these two-step equations and single-step equations. Now, this time I did not give you the number line. I asked you to create it with a minimum of 5 numbers, just meaning 5 points, okay? So let's start with subtracting 25 from both sides. That gives me 4 is less than b. I'm going to flip it. B, 4, mouth is going towards the B. So if I draw my line really quick, I'm going to do 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to put my circle at B and my arrow goes to the right. Over here, I'm going to subtract 7, subtract 7. That gives me 4 is greater than negative C. Flip it. And flip it. So we have C is greater than negative 4. I'm going to put my lines. Let's say that this one is negative 4. I'm going to put my circle and my arrow goes to the right. For this one, multiply both sides by 4. I get 12 is less than or equal to E. Flip it, E, 12, mouth goes towards E. Always just look at where it is on the variable. Is the variable getting the mouth or is the variable getting the tail? Drawing my line, let's say this is 12. I'm going to fill it in. My arrow goes to the right. Divide by 2, 14 is greater than or equal to D. I'm going to flip it, D on this side, 14 on this side. My teeth are facing the 14. So if I have my line, let's say this one's 14, I'm going to fill it in, and my arrow goes to the left. Minus 19 on this one. When I do that, I have negative 18 is greater than 6f. Divide both sides by 6, and I get negative 3 is greater than f. I'm going to flip it, f on this side, negative 3 on this side. My mouth is going towards the negative 3, so I'm going to circle. I'm running out of room, negative 3, circle. My arrow goes to the left. Last one, nuggets. Add 13 to both sides. This gives me 35 is less than 7g. Divide. 5 is less than g. Flip it. G on this side, 5 on this side. Hungry for the G. Here's my 5. Here's my circle. My arrow goes to the right. If you have questions, if you don't understand, if I lose you or confuse you, please bring them with you to class. Have a good weekend, Math